So these are paskins referish. It leaves no room for doubt. Before you make the first bracha, you first close the Sefer Torah. With the Sefer Torah closed, you say Baruch Hu, the first bracha. Then you open it. Then the Baal Torah reads. When he finishes, you close it. Then you say the last bracha. That's what the Aliyah Kodesh says clearly. And so too, the Shulchan Aruch, you find this point discussed. And again, still leaves a slight doubt. What to do then? Nothing but to be left in doubt. Except, as the Mishnah says, Asay l'chorav, yistalik min hasadik. Asay l'chorav. If you personally have a Rebbe, then yistalik min hasadik. The whole world could be in doubt for years, for generations. Everyone could be sitting in a doubt, learning it, pondering the question which way is right. But you will not be in doubt, or you will have removed any trace of suffix. Therefore, in order to resolve this suffix, there is no doubt in our minds at all what the halacha is. We don't have this suffix. Others have this doubt. Some swing this way or that way, but they swing. There's nothing settled. With us, the case is settled, because we have fulfilled Asay l'chorav, is telling the suffix. Our Rebbe, Rabbi Arizal, who undoubtedly had his case resolved with his Rebbe, and so on, Rabbi Arizal left the Sefer Torah open when he said the bracha. Rabbi Arizal was a very big bucky in Halacha, in Kabbalah. He knew more than we or anybody else that I've ever known. And he followed this custom, this minhag of having an aliyah. He opened the Sefer Torah. He left it open as the Gemara, the first day of the Gemara says. The first words of the Gemara, this is the halacha. Just as the Gemara starts originally, this is the halacha. That's how his custom was. Why is it the halacha? Because he did so. That's it. As far as we're concerned, there's no question. Kach ki balti min Rabbi side. This is how we receive from Rabbi. So we can have a shadow like this, where everyone is in a quandary. To us, it's crystal clear. We have a clear-cut psak halacha that we open the Sefer Torah, we say the bracha, then we do the kriyas Torah. When it's finished, you close it, you say the last bracha. Now, this is so clear that I would say how clear this is. This halacha is enough to fulfill the Menachem Mendel. Menachem said that every day you should learn a halacha. At least. A person must learn Shulchan Aruch every single day of his life. You should learn if necessary. You doesn't have time. You should learn for an hour, or half hour, or a daf, a page. Try to at least learn one single halacha, and he's answered with that. So it's one of Menachem's words. But with one stipulation, it has to be a psak halacha that's clear, final, not a discussion. You are a question of halacha and not to get to the final point. It must be a psak halacha, a clear-cut din. This is what we call a psak halacha. That's clear-cut as you can ever wish it to be. This is a final word on this shaila, on this din. And ashreinu, that we are zecher to have a Rebbe that can remove our doubts from us. When the person says the brachos, it is extremely important that the kahal should pay attention, not to chas v'sholem miss answering. The penalty is horrifying. When a person says the bracha on the Sefer Torah, is extremely important because that is the action of Moshe Rabbeinu receiving the Torah from Hashem. So at that time it says that the people stood trembling with fear, with awe. The person who turns his ear away, the bracha, the kriya chas v'sholem, if in some shuls you see that there are people who do not pay attention, that's fine. put the air conditioning with it. If we see in some shul that Chas v'Shalom there are people who don't pay attention, they whisper during the time of lating. I've seen cases, interesting cases. This is not Sunday, we can't have a long shiur. I once saw a shul that was afflicted as a this disease. And there was no way, as much as they spoke to the people, as much as the rabbi spoke to the people, he just couldn't get them to change their ways. There's a coldness about it. Those of you who dive into some shuls would know what this means. I'm a lady, people talk. It's time for family discussions. Well, I saw this was quite a long time ago. It was at Brighton Beach. I saw this rabbi solve the problem. The first time I ever saw the problem solved, he must be commended. This rabbi's name was Rabbi Weissman. And it was at the Young Israel of Brighton Beach. It was Brighton 7. He solved this problem. We'll discuss it some other time. But it's amazing how he did it. Still, of course, that's a solution. It's using strong methods. The proper methods are each person himself, to solve it in himself. To have simple emunah. A person has emunah. And the chashivas, and the words of Torah, the words of the tefillah, the brachos, and it's impossible he himself should not govern himself and watch himself from speaking. To avoid the poison of the tongue coming out at the wrong time. That's for sure. When the bracha is being said, when the Torah is being read, there must be absolute silence, as the Gemara says. Absolute silence. Silence should be penetrating. Now, what should the people do when the Bavly starts the bracha? They answer the Hashem Echad. When he repeats that, then they could answer Amen, or they don't have to. It's optional. When should they answer Amen? It's optional because you continue with the bracha. They should answer Amen if they missed hearing the words bracha. They just heard bracha the last part. Then they should answer Amen to sort of make up for what the bracha they missed. And at the end of the bracha, of course, they answer Amen. If they can talk out at the time. You can't, but you can share Shemay and Amen. The Baal Kodesh, of course, is not supposed to start until everyone is finished answering Amen. Each one should have kavanah for the words of the kriya, even if he doesn't understand it. After the kriya, he holds the Sefer Torah with both hands, and he closes it and says the last bracha. I got the kitzur does posek the first bracha, leave it open like we do. It's strange. The Chabad says that. The kitzur says that, as we said, that as far as we are concerned, we have the answer. So this is the seder for a person having aliyah. We'll discuss later on the seder of the kriya itself. It's exactly to fulfill these mitzvahs with emunah. Posek is kol mitzvah secha emunah. All mitzvahs are totally in emunah. There's a special in the Sefer Torah itself. The covet of the Sefer Torah itself, which is the holiest item that exists. Sefer Torah has more kedusha than svarim, any kind of svarim, or more kedusha than tefillin and mezuzahs. So therefore, the Sefer Torah, that holy, is not allowed to ever be touched, held by itself, the parchment. You have to touch the parchment. You use a talus. Let's say there's something, a dust particle covering a letter. You want to remove it, so you brush it off with something else, holding a talus or a handkerchief. if the Yediyah section has to be moved down or moved up, it's out of place, you don't pull it with your bare hands. You pull it up or down with a talus. The Gemara says a very rough statement about anybody who touches the parchment instead of the cloth itself with his bare hands. This is the coming for the Sefer Torah itself. Now, you said a person who gets the aliyah, the person who lays, and those standing by the Shulchan, they represent the Matan Torah. The Kaviyachal, a person who lays, represents Hashem, the voice of heaven. The person who gets the aliyah at that moment represents Moshe Rabbeinu. Those standing on the side are the Yeshua and the others who stood by to assist, to wait to Moshe Rabbeinu. And the rest of the people listening, the people assembled at Har Sinai to receive the Torah. Now, therefore, the Din says very strictly that those standing by the table during Kriyas HaTorah, the Baal Kodesh especially, the one getting the Aliyah especially, those two on this side also are forbidden to lean on the table at all during Kriyas HaTorah. They cannot lean one hand or lean themselves partially. There must be no leaning at all. They must stand erect during the reading of the Torah. Under no circumstances to lean to a degree where they're fully supported by the table. You can tell if a person's fully supported. If we imagine if the table was pulled away suddenly, would he lose his balance? That means fully supported. That is absolutely forbidden. To lean partially also is forbidden. What you're supposed to do is to stand upright without leaning on the table at all. This is as far as the people at the table. Of course, the person getting the aliyah, if he's a very old man, and it's difficult for him to stand, physically possible, then he's allowed to lean slightly. But slightly means also not in a position where he's being supported completely by the table. That's only by an old person, a very weak person. That type is exempt. As far as the rest of the Yelm is concerned, the Shaila is brought whether they are supposed to stand or sit. The Gemara says that they should stand. Just as the people of Har Sinai stood, you knew, the people trembled and they stood during the time of Matan Torah. That's how too people should stand during the Kriyas HaTorah. Then we find discussions on this point, and the final decision is that actually, R Nosson says a person listening to Kriyas HaTorah should stand. Nosson stood, of course, should stand because the imad, the awe, fear he should be filled with when listening to the words of Kriyas HaTorah, like at Matan Torah. But as far as Halacha L'Meisa, which means what should be done, actually special credit for those who could stand. But required to stand, in this respect there is a discussion of Shulchan. The person can agree, the Arizal, that it is permissible to sit during laying. There's only one time when it is compulsory to stand. And that is when the person getting the aliyah says Baruch Hu. At the Baruch Hu, everyone must rise up. Which means you just rise up out of your seat, and then you can sit back. The rest of the bracha, and during the lighting, and the last bracha, there's no kiruv to stand, unless a person with the Nachman himself to accept the mitzvah to a higher degree. But in between one aliyah and the next, there's surely no chumrah, no din, no requirement at all to stand. Every time they make a mishabeda for the aliyahs, no one holds that you have to stand at all. As we said, if the person himself gets an aliyah, then he still has to have somebody stand next to him. There must always be an assistant standing. So that assistant means a shliach, an agent. person lady gets the aliyah, so where's Menachem Mendel? He is supposed to represent Kaviyachal Hashem. Where is the case of Menachem Mendel? In that case, there must always be one stay next to him, and this, of course, is done simply by our custom. Ashkenazim, not the Sephardim, who have the person with the last aliyah remains there until the next aliyah is over with. He acts as the agent. If the person with the last aliyah leaves, just the Baltreid himself is going to read, there's a problem. They have anybody sitting there.
We always have. Sephardim?
Yeah.
Always.
What?
Someone just stays there.
Where?
Up by the, the sefer. Yeah?
No, the guy that got the last aliyah, he doesn't stay there for the next aliyah.
What do we get the last aliyah?
They either ask him to stay or someone else comes to stay, so like Gabbai or something.
Yeah.
Of course.
If
they call up the guy who, if the Balkore gets to go, of course, there are always two people there, always.
Yeah?
Always.
Okay,
As
good.
far as I see.
Good. Okay, so that's the halacha of covet, stating. There's one more item which is much more strict, the strictest item of all. And it's so strict that the Chassidut, the Gemara, the Shulchan are terrified. As soon as the Baltreid begins to learn, the fact that he even starts with the bracha, it is a major sin for anybody to speak. To speak means even words of Torah. At that time of forbidden. Because you may think that here words of Torah being laid, that he's speaking words of Torah, something permissible. Still, there's no permission whatsoever for a person to speak words of Torah, anything at all. Even if he's got to answer a shayla, important shayla at the moment, he's got to wait, pause, remain silent till the lady is over. Even between the aliyahs, where you're allowed to sit down according to all dayas, even then a person should avoid speaking any of the conversation as much as possible, because he may miss the next bracha. As a show, and therefore that danger should make him be on the alert to wait to watch for the next bracha, the next person. So maybe because he gets people who have very low voices, and you don't know when he's starting. You can miss the bracha if you're talking. Not talking, you watch, you see what's going on, and you'll know when the person's aliyah begins. To walk out of shul during the leading of the Torah is also strictly forbidden. While the Sefer Torah is open, the person wants to walk out. He's not part of the minyan. He comes into shul, get something, do something. He cannot walk out while the Sefer Torah is open and being read. He has to wait till that aliyah is over. They close the Sefer Torah, and then he's allowed to walk out at this time. But these are the items: not to walk out in between, not to be standing if this were necessary. Above all, not to speak, not to talk out in the posek every time we hear the Torah. This is what's meant by true Kavod HaTorah. Definitely Kavod HaTorah, Kavod Shemayim. Yes, go to Look yesterday about the vision of a kohen going first. Though in any other case, any other priorities, a kohen is allowed to forego his kavod, his honor, and allow someone to precede him. In case of aliyah, it is that minig is a custom that a kohen goes ahead of anyone, even the head of the chambashi. Now, we get to the actual aliyah. The kohen gets the aliyah first, and then, because a Levi has a chashivus over Yisrael, it's customary that the order is kohen, Levi, Yisrael. There, of course, it must be that once you call a kohen, you cannot call a Yisrael kohen. If there is no Levi in the shul, and you say, then kohen Levi, the same kohen repeats, takes the second aliyah. It is forbidden, naturally, to call two kohanim in a row. You cannot call one kohen Rishon, another kohen for Shady, and then a Levi or Yisrael, because that would show, that would give the impression that the first kohen was posek. You had to call a second kohen after him. That's two kohanim in a row, two Leviim in a row, never possible. That's out. No, you could have, if you call a kohen, you must have a Yisrael after him, that's the order. So if you don't have a Levi, and you say bin kohen Levi, the kohen takes a second, takes Shady. You open the door. There's no Steve here either. If there is no kohen in shul, this is a very controversial item. Very controversial item. If there's no kohen in shul, the question now is, does a Levi have priority over Yisrael when there is no kohen? If there's a kohen, the order must be, we said Keli, kohen Levi Yisrael. If there is no kohen, then are you free to call Yisrael, free in a row, or must you still call a Levi before Yisrael? This says that there's the Sparda Chavila. Once the kohen is not there, then there's no more requirement. The kohen is not there, you are forbidden to call Yisrael even though there is a Levi in shul. Halacha says that it's possible, it's advisable to call a Levi before Yisrael, because he does have some chivas. But if necessary, you're allowed to call Yisrael without a question. No question about it. Not like in the case of the kohen. When there's a kohen, you must call a kohen first. And if in this case, if the Yisrael isn't a Latachim, the Levi's and Amoritz, then it's completely different than the case of the kohen. Here you must call the Latachim before the Levi Amoritz. As far as the rest of the Aliyahs go, you have to call them in the order of Chashivas. Let's say, not the rest of Aliyahs, but the rest of the lineage, the rest of priorities go. If there's no kohen, Levi, call the Godel, the no Reisha call the Sedan, the Vice President, and no Sedan, you call the third Junior Vice President, Treasurer, and so on. Lamed, the Sefer, Loyal, anyone that has some kind of a title and of knowledge, the Shechet, any one of those who knows a little bit, they take priority over those who are not. But if there is no kohen, there is a Levi, then the one calling the Gabbai has to say, it ain't kan kohen, there's no kohen, then Levi midkan kohen, or Yisrael midkan kohen. It's supposed to mention those words, they should know. If, once they call the Yisrael, you cannot call a Levi or a kohen after Yisrael. That's impossible. The order is kohen, Levi, Yisrael. Kohen or Levi can never go after Yisrael, unless it's a shul like the gates of Zion gates, where they permit strange goings on. We're talking about normal, human beings, regular medaber, chiddush medaber. Then it is forbidden to call the kohen after Yisrael. Even they don't call it the kohen after Yisrael regularly. Have kohen Levi Yisrael, then they start the cycle again. They go around in circles as normal. But to ever call Yisrael then a kohen or a Levi, normal 3 cases, that nobody ever does that. Not even. But if they, let us say, if there's a city or a shul where all people davening in that shul are Gehanim. There's 10 Gehanim. You're not allowed to call a kohen after kohen, right? Let's say better. There's 9 Gehanim and 1 Yisrael. 9 Kahanim and 1 Yisrael. You're not allowed to call a Kohen after Kohen. You're not allowed to call a Kohen after Yisrael. Right? 2 things. These are 2 major items. If you have a Yeshua that are all Kahanim, 1 Yisrael, who gets first crack at it? The Yisrael. Strange case, right? Yet in this case, because they're all Kahanim, except it's only when there's one single Yisrael. 1 Yisrael, he gets first Aliyah. How can he get the over? 9 giants. 9 Kahanim. 1 alone can knock him out. Here you have 9 against 1. The answer is that there's one thing that's higher than everything, and that is the Midah of Shalom. To keep peace, because if you would have these 9 and the Yisrael to follow, you would have a bloody battlefield among the 9. Each one saying, me, I'm the biggest. I am Clay Fettis, right? I'm the greatest. And therefore, in order to keep the peace, so brother, we have the rules of saying, and Yeshua Kahanim waiting for the Yisrael to go first. If, let's say, it's literally the city of all Kahanim, the shul of all Kahanim, all then are alike. You have 3 Kahanim getting Aliyah, one after the other. Very strange case. The other case is even more strange. You have 9 and 1. The Yisrael gets the first Aliyah. A Kohen gets the second, and the second Kohen gets the third. So you have 2 rules, 2 infractions there. Yisrael going before a Kohen, and 2 Kohen one after the other. These are unusual cases. However, it does happen sometimes. By again, within those gates, you have nearly everyone there is a Kohen. Kohen or a millionaire, it's the same thing. They have those special rules, special, shiftless table. I know, again, the order is Kohen, Levi, Yisrael, no 2 Kohanim or 2 Leviim in a row, and in case and priorities, it's a separate case, we'll discuss that more in detail. Priorities, we said so far, Kohen first, Levi, and then Elisha Kol. Now, we come to the case of chiyuvim. There are certain people that are chiyuv, they must get an aliyah, must get meaning if there's room, if possible. During the week when you have 1 single aliyah, Kohen, Levi, Yisrael, it means you have only 1 single aliyah available for Yisrael, and you have a number of people needing aliyahs. We'll discuss which one gets priority then. Let's give priorities to that which deserves it. A few words about something which is Oila al Hakel, above all. So that is the zechus, extreme zechus of any person being zecher to Elam Haba through davening vasikin. In order to zecher davening vasikin and zecher to b'nei Elam Haba, which means that more than the average person who gets Elam Haba, it's not just a chelik. A person who has a better share because of the mitzvah vasikin. Davening vasikin is different. If you davening vasikin and regular, there's a difference between gold-plated and solid gold. Through and through. Davening vasikin is an item where it weeds out those who come late. You cannot afford to be late. The feeling of accomplishment, if you could stand at Syrian Jewish to be prepared to walk forward and start Shemon Esrei at Vasikin, the feeling is the same as though you just finished learning a block Gemara in depth, and you worked on it, struggled on it, and you accomplished it. There's a deep feeling of accomplishment. You hear that you made it. Your day is made. The mitzvah that is so high that it's stressed, the Gemara says, as far as Abraham is concerned, the Arizal stressed it to the utmost, It's something that each Jew should strive for. There are certain Jews, of course, who never allow a day of their lives to go by without Masikin. Without that Madrega, at least where it's handed to us, rubbish handed to us. Take it, please take it without any effort. It's at least accepted. It happens that no, coincidentally, the time that we daven, so Masikin comes to us, not we go to Masikin. This week, Baruch Hashem, we was able to make Masikin every single day, Monday through Friday. Now we come to a small, wouldn't even call it a sacrifice, a tiny item. The item is 5 minutes. For 5 minutes, you could buy Masikin for another week. How's that for a price? Next week, but only 5 minutes earlier, not more than that, you can get Masikin the whole week. Plus the fact that it doesn't even really cost you 5 minutes, because we have always announced Shachris at 6:45. It means only that we daven at a genuine time, not counterfeit. You know, it's 6:45, shouldn't be 10:00. We daven as we spend it, 6:45, we start Haydn. We'll make Masikin the entire next week. Trying to deposit that in the bank of heaven. Let's put an effort to it. No, as we said, this is depositing solid gold, but not regular gold. This is pos. The Gemara says that pos is the purest gold. It's heavily in a sense, because that's the gold which the Beis Hamikdash is made of. Let's use this heavenly gold. Let's acquire this heavenly gold by acquiring this unparalleled privilege of being able to daven Masikin for a whole week. You get the whole week of solid pause for just 5 minutes of your time. Let's put that into action. Continuing, a person should even daven the Stal Hashem to be zechet to Masikin. It's some tefillah. There's a whole discussion there by Rav Nosson. Because this means in a word, in a sentence, Nosson says that asking the question, what is bigger? Which is greater, tefillah or tzedek? Tefillah too, which is a bigger than tzedek? Tefillah or tzedek? Very big question, a very important question. Nosson explains that there are two kinds of tefillah. Because we find in certain places where it says that tefillah is higher than tzedek, certain places tefillah is lower than tzedek. Tefillah is malchus, right? Tefillah is malchus. The tefillah is malchus is lower than tiferes. After all, that's edit benukla. So malchus is lower than tiferes. Tiferes is tzedek. Malchus is tefillah. Of course, this is when you're getting into regular shir. We'll leave this go now, but it just suffices to say that Rosenfeld brings a different two kinds of tefillah. And the highest tefillah, the highest possible tefillah, is when a person davens to Hashem to be zecher to serve Hashem with Teilah tefillah. That tefillah is so great, it's making Teilah's tefillas, rising to Teilah tefillah. Okay, so we should be zecher to fulfill it, daven for it, work for it, get up for it, but be zecher to Masikin, because Ashrei for those who are zecher to daven Masikin. I recall the Arizal, never forget the time when I saw him at that age, the Zerizus. Zerizus means the speed. The clock struck for Masikin, and I got up. I couldn't keep up with his speed. And I was pretty young at that time. He was around 90. He had a good, close to 70 years over me. And his speed in rushing for mitzvah this was a srofim, not just a malach, but a sorof. Flash of fire. Should be zeichet to emulate. True iskavos, iskashos, and the kabir. So Rabbi say again, next week with the show, it will be a shame if we have to beg you and to give you the belitza sales talks on something like this, sell you a seeking at such a price. It would be a shame. Let's do it for Aharon, the B'tach Simcha. So the following din of Kriya Shema, the din of Kriyas Sefer Torah, the din is we stated you have to call up a Kohen first. Kohen comes first regardless of how dumb he is. He goes first. Still gets priority over all the others because of his birthright. Kohen is like the Bechad. As a birthright, he's the beginning of the Keli. It's called a Keli because it's a Mayim Chayim El Keli, living waters. That's the waters of Torah. El Keli belong to the Keli. Okay, it's the vessel that holds Torah, and it's Kohen Levi Yisrael. That's the order it's supposed to go. So in that case, a Kohen doesn't even have the right to forego his priority rights in being called up. He must be called up first. At the same time, there are certain posek who say, woe is to that person who calls up a Kohen before a Talmud Chacham. So I would hate to ever be a Gabbai in a shul like that. So you never want to be a Gabbai in a shul. Be the one to call Ya'amoid because maybe you'll be over. In any event, that was his day. Today there's no Talmidei Chachamim. There's a important Halacha. Wow. In any case, important Halacha today is, I get interesting, that we have many laws about a Talmud Chacham. For instance, let's say we want a Talmud Chacham, a Talmud Chacham is so great that he is allowed to rule by himself. He's allowed to, let's say, be a judge. Instead of having 3 judges, you can have 1 judge, a Talmud Chacham. Instead of having 3 people to be matei neder, you need 3 to release a person from a neder, from a vow. The din is that a chacham is matei neder. The din says nowadays you need 3. According to the Torah, 1 chacham can be matei neder. Nowadays you need 3 because today there's no Talmud Chacham around. That's sort of like a dinosaur. It's chassid. One time they existed, they don't exist anymore. So today you have to look at Talmud Chacham. Shaila about a Talmud Chacham to put a person. The Chedim, also not did the Gemara, and Shulchan was brought too. Does a Talmud Chacham exist today? And then the Gemara says that Talmud Chacham exists today for certain rules only. Certain laws, like the covenant you give to these. Some of the very few items that they exist. As far as a law, as a Talmud Chacham, today there aren't any. So it's one of those items that are hard to come by in a dir. It's called a dir yosin. Why do we call it often? This generation is called it often because the Talmud Chacham, like Elisha Navi, cried out. When Navi was installed, he cried out, "Avi, Avi, my father, my father." The generation had a father. That's the Talmud Chacham is the father of. He brings up, he raises the children, raises them with the derech HaTorah. But when the Doyer Yosef is often that has no Talmud Chacham, has no tzadik to turn to, tzadik. They can be team, tzadik emes, before. So Doyer Yosef. Today we are never very much orphaned. We have the Menachem, we have some. We have Menachem, of course, compared to the ratio, compared to ourselves. But that's because we are such way down ois. But to us, anything is Talmud Chacham today. Anybody today, Talmud Chacham, a rabbi, a chacham, a bashi, you get those because of our level. But actually, we take it in reality to find a Talmud Chacham in the full sense. Never, it's very silly we haven't got it today. So back to what we were speaking about, he said, therefore, today, we're not worried, we're not concerned about calling it a Kohen of Haaretz before a Talmud Chacham. Before a what? The Talmud Chacham is also not far from that degree. And Haaretz and the Talmud Chacham today are very close. It's a very close race between the two. Very little separation between them. And therefore you can call it Kohen without any problem. Now, if the Kohen is in the middle of Kriya Shema, or the brachos of Kriya Shema, which means it's only after Baruch, and surely be stating Shema Esrei, then if there is no, and even if he's the only Kohen in Shul, which means you're going to have to call Yisrael, you may call Yisrael before the Kohen. Why? Because everyone can see, they can see the Kohen is there. They can see the Kohen is davening. It's sort of made public. And when they call a Kohen, they all yell, no, he's davening. In the middle of davening, you can't call him. So therefore, because everyone knows, there's no shiloh about this Kohen doing anything wrong with him while he's davening, you're allowed to call a Levi or a Yisrael in his place. You can call him by his name. But you don't say an Eikan Kohen. Usually when a Kohen is not in the shul, you say Eikan Kohen, no Kohen. You call Yamai Yisrael. Here you say just Levi Benkum Kohen or Yisrael Benkum Kohen. You call his name because there's no disgrace for the Kohen since they see he's davening. But if the Kohen is not in the shul, they call the Kohen. Right? And they found that he had left. He went out. He was in the hall. They can't find him temporarily. He went out to look for a sefer, so you can't wait for him. And then, you're not supposed to call the Yisrael in his place by his name, because if you call the Yisrael by name, people are not aware that Kohen is not there. Not everyone is aware of that. You see him, you know he's there. If you don't see him, people think I can't see him. Maybe I'm looking here, he's over there. So, they think that what happens is he's not going to call the Yisrael, Yamai this Yisrael, instead, that Kohen must be posek. There's something wrong with that Kohen. They found something in his lineage, in the family tree, so therefore they're calling it Yisrael. This means it's a disgrace for the Kohen. That's why you're not allowed to call a Yisrael by his name if the Kohen is not there. If he's initially allowed to call him by his name. If he's not there, you're not allowed to call him by his name, or a lady by his name, because they would give the impression the Kohen is possible. That part we have to straighten up. That's clear now. Now, if the Kohen is standing, if he's davening, as we said before, after Baruch, and he was called up, he didn't realize. See, looking at the city, you figure he's following what you say. You didn't realize he's in the middle of davening, you call him, he must still go. Even though you know I'd be masik, he must still go up there to try to finish up the end of a paragraph. At least if possible, ben aprokim. And then go up and say the brachos, but not to follow with the Balkaida, not to repeat the words after the Balkaida. Because that, every person going after the Taida, when he gets his Aliyah, he must repeat the words after the Balkaida. But not in the case of a Kohen who cannot talk out there. And of course, the same thing holds true for Yisrael. Yisrael is called up then, he goes up, he also should be careful not to speak the words, just say the bracha. Now, if the Kohen is in the middle of Shemon Esrei, then there's no problem. Then you don't have to worry about, he doesn't have to rush up to come up, unless it's in the middle of the Kohen. It's at the very end. Otherwise, you just call somebody else, finished. If he is holding in the middle of the brachas before Yishtabach, if you Baruch Shomar Yishtabach, then even though you see he's there, you can still call him. If he's after Baruch, you know he's after Baruch, don't call him. So that's supposed to be nothing. Between Baruch Shomar and Yishtabach, you're allowed to call him L'chatchila, but he may go right up and say the brachas, but again, not to repeat the words after the Baruch, just to think them in his mind. If they called a Yisrael, but the Yisrael wasn't there, it's not like a Kohen anymore. And you're allowed to call it Yisrael by his name, because what's possible about a Yisrael? This is love number one, is love number two. What can you say about a Yisrael? It's possible. By a Kohen, there's Kahuna, that's possible. So say they figure he's not, for whatever reason, they call somebody else, but there's not a psul in Mishpachah. Now, if there was no Kohen in Shul, get this clear, or they thought there was no Kohen in Shul, but the Gabbai made the error of calling up a Yisrael. The Yisrael comes up, they show him the place, and he says, Bachu es Hashem Aleh. He said Hashem Aleh. They all answered. And then somebody in the back pipes up, hey, what's the deuce? Here's a Kohen standing here. How do you call Yisrael first? And then is that you then call a Kohen up. As long as the Yisrael does not start saying the bracha, Baruch Atah Hashem, once you start a bracha, it's finished. You cannot back out anymore. But as long as he didn't say the bracha, even though he said Baruch Hashem Vayach, then you call a Kohen up, in order not to embarrass the Yisrael stands on his side, the Sefer Torah, and waits. The Kohen goes up, he says Baruch Hu again, the bracha, and his quote, then they call a Levi. After the Levi, they now give the Yisrael the Aliyah. Now you go. In other words, we're not throwing you off. We're not discarding you, but because we go to the Kohen, we called them first. It's still your place to get there with you. So the Yisrael remains there with the kind of Levi preceding him. The same thing with the Levi too. They called the Levi, and they thought there was no Kohen, so they go Levi to the Kohen. They thought there was a Kohen in the shul. Levi waits, the Kohen gets here, the Levi goes after him. In these cases, if the Levi said the Baruch Atah Hashem, the Kohen has lost his chance to get Eliyah. And then it says that in calling up for an Aliyah, he said you have to get to the Hashibus. The Kohen goes first, the Levi goes second, and then you have the mad scramble for the Gadol. The Gadol goes next. Shlishi you give to the Gadol. Now this has become a long topic and a wild one. If you ever thought there was a Wild West, nothing compared to the wild Aliyot in different shuls, in different places where the envy and the jealousy and the friction that comes up at the time of Aliyahs, one of those has been brought in Halacha. As far as we know, the past, let's say for the past decades, many decades, perhaps a few centuries, the Aliyahs, according to Halacha, were, the important one was Shlishi, because that's the first. Just like we said, Kohen goes first, so Kohen and Levi have to go first, not because they learn the B'nai Tzedek, because they're Kohen and Levi. But then it starts the union of Gadol. So the Shlishi is a Gadol. So the Gadol Vateda, the Talmud Chacham, the Rebbe in the Shul, and he is supposed to get Shlishi every week. Menachem was the Gadol Hadar, he was the tzadik. Menachem's tefillin. His meaning was to get Shlishi every single week, as to show the Halacha. But later on, they had the minhag came around, turned about that Aharon Chodev. Regular ones go first. To finish off a sefer, the last Aharon, the Amoid Aharon. When they said the Aharon, then everyone said, because this was considered the biggest Aliyah, more important than Shlishi. That was also for a period of time. Now, about a little over 400 years ago, so they discovered the Zohar Kodesh, which had been hidden in a cave for so long. This was the greatest discovery possible. It's hard to really conceive of the treasure. You find a hidden treasure. You discover a continent, a lost continent, you discover a means, a stairway, a pathway to heaven. Nothing compared to finding this light, this light. Zohar Kodesh, which was written by Shulchan, hidden in a cave. As it says in the Zohar Kodesh, hidden in the cave to be kept hidden until the will of Hashem that the later generations, many generations later, shall be revealed. And then when this light is revealed, to explain it, clarified, we have the Arizal came up with a clarification, explanation of the Zohar Kodesh. This, there came out the revelation that Shishi is an Aliyah that's kosher. So we now had already a Chashivas for Shlishi, and Shishi, and Achlan. And of course, Machtir is its Chashivas itself, the Gemara says it goes together with Musaf. Although once you get Machtir, it sort of turns down as bonus. It's a bonus, take it. David Musaf, it goes with it. They get Machtir, they don't want the bonus there. They're very magnanimous. But that left out sort of the Shlishi, sort of a pity. So, this is what brought about to years and years and decades of friction. Whenever there was a person in shul who considered himself a big donor, member of the board of directors, and he was given the Chamishi. That shul, which she gave money to, somebody found itself without a roof. He let out a blast when the roof came off. So the question was, what do we do about these aliyahs? Who gets them? We need to find people small enough to get these aliyahs. Therefore, the Shulchan Aruch wrote Halacha that for a person to differentiate between one aliyah and the next, regardless of what's written in the other Sforim, is a desecration, is a chil Hashem, chil Torah. Not allowed to make any difference between one aliyah and the next. They're all words of Torah. Till the Arizal came and said that the aliyah, all aliyahs, his aliyahs, just like every time I had the aliyah every week, the Arizal's aliyah every week, the Arizal's aliyah was the V. According to the Sfidos, Chesed is first, Gevura second, Chesed is Kohen, Gevura Din is Levi, Tiferet, Yisrael is Tiferet, which encompasses Kohen and Levi. Netzach is the combination of the side of Chesed, Chesed Yesod, Arizal's aliyah with Netzach. Because Arizal was nostalgic. Netzach was the fourth day of Sukkot. It was a nostalgus. Arizal was Kineged Moshe Rabbeinu. In the Yeshviz you have Abraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, Moshe Rabbeinu. Arizal Bechilus Moshe Rabbeinu. The word Netzach is the gematria of Arizal's name. Also, the word Netzach, Arizal revealed with Megillah in 10 chapters of Tehillim. First chapter of Tehillim, Nichtam LeDavid, starts with the word Nichtam and ends with the word Netzach. Nichtam Arizal says that I give this over to my Talmidim. It reveals to my Talmidim. First Talmud is R Nosson. Nichtam the gematria of Nosson. And Arizal he signs the signature at the end of the first chapter. He signs the word Netzach to show as a signature that this is the revelation, like the author signature. So therefore, Arizal said that Netzach is the fourth Sfira, and my aliyah is the V. What we are lacking is some tzadik, or somebody should have gotten up and said, my aliyah is Chamishi. That would have saved the world. So we still have battles over Chamishi, Shvi, and of course there the Arizal too said that he said that the V was considered less than Chamishi. Because the V is like in the middle someplace. The Arizal said, if I have said that the V is a good aliyah now, anybody should take Chamishi or Shvi, because Shvi is next to Aharon, or it is the last. Chamishi is next to between Shishi and the V. It's a perfect sandwich. Therefore now there should be no problems. But Mesa, to draw the bottom line, it must be stressed that a person, the Chas v'Shalom, who hesitates for a moment, because I was called up Shvi, or the V, or Acharon, or Mafti, which is not to my Chas v'Chaliva, that person, Rahman is disgracing Chas v'Shalom. It's the opposite of Chavruta Torah, because every single word of the Torah is the word of Hashem. Every word of the Torah is Kodesh Kodeshim. Every time a person is called to the Aliyah, there is a tremendous zechus, very big zechiyah. A person should go with the yidah of fachad, with fear and with awe, because he is being called. At the moment he is called, he becomes the bechina of Moshe Rabbeinu. While Kaida who reads, that's the thunder coming from heaven, the voice of Hashem, the agent who receives this is reading to his Moshe Rabbeinu. The rest of the Jews are receiving the Torah. At that time, there's no question about which aliyah I'm getting. Of course, it has reached a point, Baruch Hashem, where we do not find these machlokes anymore. I noticed that years ago, I used to see it strangely. Years ago, in older shuls, I was a kid, I saw this fire flare up when the person got a V or a chalishi. Nowadays, I've seen in shuls, there's no problems. Nobody on it. Why? Because nobody knows about the Zayde Chodesh with Shishi or about the Achim with this. Ignorance is a very healthy item. People don't know, so the same thing, Zobazah. Give a guy Shishi, he might say, what do you wait till Shishi from me? What am I getting? Or Achim? What am I, the worst one? You should get the last one. But let him think that way. It's a healthy way. Then we're not to be the Achamim, but at least as a Russian Peshutim, simple people, as I would Peshutim, we should be zealous to think what comes more than the Torah. But before the Torah is Kavod HaTorah. We should be zealous to really give the true Kavod HaTorah. That's Kavod Shemayim, Kavod Shem Shemayim. And that we should be zealous to be Kabel the Torah, absorb the Torah, thereby, Torah Rabbeinu says that tefillos are answered. We don't have to have our tefillos answered and see the opinion. Es Rikash, Yes Kel Tzadik, and Leila Chumei.
Amen.
First place, everybody here should be congratulated. We will be able to say Ashreinu with feeling. We're zecher to start the week right. We started the week at 7:04, right on the button. That's what's seeking today. We should be zecher to complete this week right too. There are no words that can describe no words that can describe ruchnius. No words can describe the chashivas of a mitzvah. Schar mitzvah b'hai al maleka. There's no such thing as reward in this world because there's nothing in the world that can be fitting for the reward of a mitzvah, especially one like Mosikin, where it's in the Fedish that this mitzvah is rewarded by Elam Haba.